All right, guys. Well, this is always a very, very special treat for us here at Submission Radio. Our next guest is an MMA legend, multiple King of Pancras, former UFC heavyweight champion, UFC Hall of Famer, of course. He's a Hollywood star as well, and he joins us back here on the program. El Guapo himself, Bas Rutten, and welcome back to Submission Radio. It's great to have you. And in video. We love having you in video, man.
It's amazing. As long as the light is bright on my face from the front, I don't look that old.
Yeah, well, man, you always look great, but it looks like you got studio lighting. There's a lot to talk to you about, obviously, before we get into the craziness of the past couple of weeks. We saw, and this is a personal favorite of mine, we saw it was the 10-year anniversary of The Men's Room with Bas and Jeremy, the classic GTA 4 TV show. I used to play GTA 4 and just sit there watching TV, you doing your thing with that Jeremy guy. It was a massive deal to be part of the game. What kind of memories do you have from doing it and recording that?
You know, I had great memories. So first of all the fighting you see in the game is me too. Wow. And we changed the game. We changed, and I mean, to change the way, how you saw it, what is the name? With all the little balls, motion cap.
Oh, yeah.
The motion cap. So what happened with the motion capture, normally you just hit the air, right? And that's they capture that with all these little balls, and that's how you fight on the street. But I told them, I said, guys, that's not really what you need to do, is let me hit something. Because I'm telling you, if you're going to see that and I connect with something, you see the power coming back. I said, we brought some focus mitts and some tie pads. So my friend was holding it up, and we were doing it first without, and then we start hitting, actually connecting against things. They freaked out, man. The difference, if you see it is so cool. So if you see some guy getting carjacked, that was myself and my buddy, Amir Peretz, doing that as well. At the end, I had to do that crazy in the men's room thing. And man, it was so funny to write a script for that. I broke the sentences up like in places where you should not break them up. So it sounded really psychotic. And dude, it was so funny because these guys started laughing so hard all the time, and they messed up our takes. So, guys, you got to go leave the room because, I can't if you do this 5 times in a row, then it doesn't come natural anymore. You got to let it be completely psychopathic. And, it happened. They went out, and then we did it. Dude, it's so funny when I start shouting at the audience, who wants the knife fight with me in the audience?
Yes.
Completely crazy.
Oh, man, that was one of my favorite parts. If people, I know it's on YouTube, so if people haven't checked it out, watch it. It's like a TV show, but it's animated, and it's like an animated version of Bas and some guy. It's hilarious. But that's crazy that you did all the motion capture for the fighting in Grand Theft Auto 4. So pretty much everything you see Nico Bellic do, you did that. Were you hired on to do the motion capture for the fighting or to do the men's room, and that's something that they added last second?
No, they had both. They said, would you like to do the motion cap? And then we have a great idea. We want you to have like a part on the TV. You have a TV show in the game. If you go to the safe house, you can zip through the channels. That to me, that's like saying, because I have no clue about video games. But I say, hey, anything, man. I love to do that stuff. So, yeah, I had an enormous good time. It's one of my best works, I always say, because it really sounded completely that I was a psychopath. It was hilarious. Waking up in the middle of the night, covered in blood, and have no clue what happened, like that. What the heck? Oh, yeah.
They have to bring you back. They have to bring you back for GTA 6, man. I'm telling you. I think that's going to push an extra 1 million copies of the shelf because it's unbelievable. We also have to compliment you on your great job that you're doing commentating for the PFL. Another great weekend of fights. Tell us, what were some of the highlights for you from that weekend? Because there are a lot of pretty cool finishes.
To tell you the truth, I just watched, let me see. Go over the fights. Tell me which fight you want to hear first. Because I watched Fedor, I watched Mitrione with Vader.
Yeah, just before we get into those fights, I mean just the PFL, because the PFL had a great event, and you did a great job commentating that event. So I'm just curious, before we get into those other big fights, how was it for you doing another PFL event, and also what are some of the highlights for you?
Pretty much everything is a highlight. Man, these guys fighting twice in one night, I never did that. I wish I would have done that at least, or 3 times for the 8-man tournament. It was so cool, And for these guys to do that, first fight is 2 rounds, second round is 3 rounds, because apparently by law, you cannot have more than 5 rounds in one day. So that's why I had to do those rules. They took the elbows out because nobody wants to get cut before the big finale, which is December 31st in Madison Square Garden. But to see guys like Josh Copeland, right? That was last week. That was in New Orleans. But this is the perfect example that, ranking is just a number. He was the number 8 seed. This guy, he had 2.5 months to go to the show of 2 weeks ago. So to fight 2 fights. He said, you know what? I finally got some money. I'm getting a nutritionist, and I'm going to watch my food and all the little things that I do wrong. I'm going to work really, really hard on it. Dude, you saw this guy come back. It was insane. It was a complete new guy. He lost a whole bunch of weight. He was head movement, in and out movement. His punching speed was faster. Didn't stop, but beats Barroso, who was the number 1 seed. Then he goes on knocking out Alex Nicholson in the second fight, and now he's going to the finals. This guy was placed last, and he was only in because a fight went to the distance. If that fight would have gone to a finish, he wouldn't have been on in the playoffs. So now he's in, just got lucky to get in, changed everything about himself. And he looks really awesome. Now he has another 2.5 months. I can only imagine what he's going to do in those 2.5 months. If he makes another growth spurt like he did, he might win the whole thing.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, just on a side note, it's pretty good seeing Kevin Hart doing promos for the event. I know Dennis is a massive, massive Kevin Hart fan. What did you think of them and sort of him getting involved in the company?
It's really good. He's one of the money men also, right? He invested also for what I understand, in the Professional Fighters League. And what about, did you see last show against Vinny Magalhaes? Did you see what he did?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy has 4 fights, and I don't think he went over 6 minutes of fight time in total. I mean, he like I said, he fights like he's double parked. He has to get it over, and then he goes out. So really amazing, pulling off a flying triangle. And then from the triangle, he went for a Kimura. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. And also what he said is, I put the hard work in, Bas. The last 2.5 months, because they all had 2.5 months since the last fight to get ready for this, he said, I took 2 Sundays off. That's the only thing. For the rest, he trained every single day, and most of the time, twice a day, took only 2 Sundays off in 2.5 months. And there you go, man. You put the work in, and you see the result immediately. He has a big chance of winning that $1 million.
That's what I love about the PFL, actually, because you get to see a lot of these names that we've sort of grown to love. And now they have like a new added motivation. It's kind of like they're in charge of where they go. And if they put in the hard work, we're seeing all these guys sort of make it again to that next level and have a sort of a second life. So I absolutely love it. PFL, everybody has to check it out if you guys haven't checked it out in Australia. Of course, Bas doing an amazing job commentating it. But let's talk about some of the other big fights, because UFC 229, I mean, it's been over a week since UFC 229. We've just come back from Las Vegas. We were in the middle of all the craziness, but the whole time it was happening, we were wondering, what does our friend Bas think of the fight? What did he think of Khabib's performance against Conor McGregor? It was an excellent performance. A lot of people really giving Khabib a lot of credit for it. What did you think of the actual fight and the way Khabib did against Conor?
I think it was phenomenal. I mean, he rocked him a few times also on the feet. And then, we knew that once it goes to the ground, although I was impressed with Conor's takedown defense in the beginning. It worked well on the ground also, the way he tried to shut him down. But, with Conor, once he got tired, then we see the repetitive thing. I think if you really push him and you constantly work him, it's an area where he's not really comfortable. And if you're not comfortable somewhere, well, you get tired faster. And that's exactly what happened. But, Khabib was just all over this place. I mean, his striking, everything looked good. His takedowns, he did a phenomenal job, left and right. I mean, there's not one thing that you can say bad about him. I thought that if Conor was able to land a shot, that could be trouble, but he couldn't land it. Maybe he landed a shot here and there, but not a full punch shot. And Khabib hit the harder shots than Conor hit him. So that was super impressive. And then the way to finish it, yeah, I thought it was an unbelievable fight. I did a phenomenal job. I think this guy's going to be very hard to beat. And in the aftermath, of course, this is, everybody talks, I said, okay, first let's say this. It shouldn't have happened. It's wrong. I know that. It's all wrong. It should not have happened. I'm not for it. Not at all. But I can totally get it, right? Well, we're all human. He's been taking insults for the last 6 weeks, 2 months. Every day, he decided not to say anything back. Yeah, a little here and there. But you know what it is? That's a drop in the bucket. And it keeps on going, and it keeps on going, and it keeps on going. And then after the fight, finally the fight is over. They're finally unloading. And then the coach from McGregor starts saying something to him. That was the drop that made the bucket flow, right? As they say in Holland. And I think he just lost it at that moment. Then everything came back. You know, all the insults about his family, about his religion, about his country. You know, there's a lot of things. And everybody says the same thing, you know. It's not, but people go to me, come on, boss, you can understand it. I say, you can't understand that? Of course I can understand. Everybody's human. What, he's a machine? He doesn't get affected by it? Of course, everybody. If somebody starts about my family and, you know, and my religion and my in the country, oh, these stupid people from Holland, and it's constantly going, and your friends are terrorists, and it just keeps on digging. Eventually, yeah, you're going to hit the snare somewhere. You know, and then when the moment presents itself and they keep on going after it, yeah, I can completely understand it. Should have never happened? Of course not. I'm not for it. I'm not saying it's good. Absolutely not. But I can understand it happened. That's the only thing I'm saying.
So I guess sort of looking at what's next for Khabib, not in terms of fight, but do you think there should be any kind of punishment? Because at the moment, the Nevada State Athletic Commission is still withholding his fight purse. There's going to be some kind of hearing you got to expect. What do you think sort of should be the consequences, if any, for Khabib sort of going forward?
Well, I said to say the same thing, but when Conor went wrong, right? I said the fans of Conor should give him a break. I mean, we all do stupid stuff, I said at the time, but he's going to have to pay for what he does, of course. It needs to go to court, it needs to go to the Athletic Commission, and whatever fine it is, well, he's going to have to pay that. You know, yeah, I would, for sure. But this is a guy who has been so clean his entire career, who never, you know, I mean, never heard anything about it. Everybody that I talked to, I met him at the Professional Fighters League when he was with Abu Bakr. It's pretty much his brother. You know, it's his cousin, but they treat each other like brothers. And he was over there as well. He's a really great guy. You know, I think just McGregor has a way to get in people's heads, right? And that's why he's not doing it, because he wants to stir up that equilibrium, and he wants to make sure that they're going to, you know, be angry. And if they're angry, they're going to make mistakes. That's the whole setup here. It's very smart with what he's doing, but he should understand that, you know, some things you simply can't say. You can't start talking about family. You know, that's a bad one. About religion, I think that's a really bad one as well. It's almost like talking politics now here in America. It's the same thing. You can't say it, because if somebody's from the other side, ooh, it's right away panic.
Yeah, it's crazy, because we spoke about this in the lead up to all of McGregor's fights, for Diaz, for Mayweather, and of course for this one, and that's Conor McGregor's ability to get in people's heads, and him willing to basically say and do anything to get in his opponent's head. Do you think going forward, Conor McGregor, excuse me, changes his approach in any way, maybe tapers things back? Because we saw there was that video released where in between rounds, he did say to Khabib, it's just business. And it kind of seemed like he was sort of letting Khabib know, hey man, you know, I didn't mean those things, which is an interesting thing to say in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, well, then he probably knew that he was fighting a much stronger guy than he thought he was, you know, and that was, and he could get really hurt. And maybe he said it because of that. I don't know. I talked to somebody else, and who also has a friend who comes also from Dagestan. And he said this guy was so crazy. He was at the military base, and if there were 10,000 people, he said he fought 2,000, 3,000 of those guys. You know, he was just a crazy guy. He said, but they brought him to the big officer or wherever he had to go to, and the guy just looked at him and he was uncontrollable pretty much. The only thing the guy says, okay, let's call your father and mother. And he broke down completely. I mean, couldn't do became a little kid. That is the worst thing you can do to the mom and dad. Well, think about this, that Conor insulted his family as well. I mean, dude, if these guys, you heard about Khabib, what he said himself. You know, he says, oh, my dad's going to beat me up. Even Putin, Vladimir Putin, said, please, but your son. You know, so it's a big offense. These are people also, if you come there, you look for help, they take you in your home. They're born with that. They have to do that. They're very caring for people, you know, and then especially the parents. Well, the parents are everything for them. And if you start insulting them, yeah, that's not a good idea. So that was a story I heard last weekend from somebody, and that gives you a little bit of a perspective how much they adore their parents over there. So stay away from family. Conor, do the same thing that you always did. He changed his game the last time. This is where he started doing the religion and everything and the terrorist thing, but he said, no, he shouldn't have gone there. Just go to the fighter. You can insult the fighter. We know this is going to happen. This is for selling pay-per-views. We kind of get it. Yeah, he does it really well, and it is really offensive. But, it's towards me. I don't really care about that. But once you start hitting religion and all that other stuff, I don't think it's a smart idea. So just keep on doing what you're doing. Go back to the old Conor. Just insult the fighter. That's the only thing I'm saying.
What do you make of Khabib and his ultimatum to the UFC? Because he put out a big post on his Instagram and he said that unless the UFC sort of rehires his team, he won't be fighting for them. He'll fight somewhere else because he's loyal to his team. And, if one of them sort of is down, then all of them are down. If you're the UFC, what do you do in that situation? How do you sort of, I suppose, reconcile it? How would you approach that?
Well, I think now the storm is blown over, right? I mean, now they can think we're all human. The insults towards Khabib, that also automatically were insults to his family. And the family, his brothers, even if it's cousins, they all consider themselves brothers. We talk about this on the Professional Fighters League already 3-4 months ago when we were talking about Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov. It's a close-knit community. So, yes, of course, I can understand he jumps in and he suckers punch him. Again, completely wrong. You should never do that. But, man, it went really up. I always look at myself, and especially at the time when I was fighting, I would immediately, I think I would have done the same thing. I was just, if I would have taken every insult. You see, with me, in the preparation before that, I will start saying things back, and I know how to trigger certain things in people, and it will not be pretty as well. So then, we kind of balance it out. But imagine I would have taken it. I don't know what I would have done. I'm not in control of my emotions. Right. And you're fighting. There's a lot of testosterone flying on. There's a lot of everything. You're an A-type personality. Everybody has that. So I can understand it. That's the only thing I'm saying. It's wrong. Of course it's wrong. But I can understand it. And for the UFC to right away to cut him out, especially after the things that Conor did before as well, even at the weigh-ins, throwing the bottles, all that stuff, I think they should be a little lighter. They should say, you know what? We looked at it again. It's a human reaction. We're only human. We can control our emotions.
Just quickly, because it seems like there's a bit of steam building towards a Floyd Mayweather Khabib fight. I mean, what would your reaction be if something like that came to? Do you have any interest in seeing a boxing match between Khabib and Floyd Mayweather?
No, I don't. That's not Khabib's number. Not his forte. No. He saw this and he says, "Oh, he hit Conor." But you also have to know that. Imagine, you're the better striker. You never expect it. If you never saw him throwing punches like that, and you don't expect it, suddenly that's very effective when he comes in. Also, mixing up takedowns with the punch on top. We saw happen with the Kevin Randleman and Mirko Krokop was the same thing. Mirko's a way better striker. But there's the takedown. And he fakes the takedown, and boom, suddenly comes over the top with the left, actually, he did. But you see, so that doesn't mean he's a professional boxer. Conor can really box. He boxed. He did a lot of amateur boxing matches. He started boxing when he was 16 or 15, maybe even sooner. So he already knew how to box. I think that Khabib, I think his forte is wrestling and submissions. We all know that. So if Mayweather should step up, he should really step up. He should say, no, let's do it with takedowns. If you really want a big fight Nurmagomedov on MMA rules.
Goodness gracious.
That's what he said to McGregor. Well, Nurmagomedov doesn't kick anyway. Just let him punch. Let him use his takedown and submissions.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I think a lot of people would tune in to see Floyd Mayweather get taken down and Khabib saying things to him on the floor as he submits him. Just quickly, before we move off the topic, if there was a rematch between Khabib and Conor, do you think it could go differently? Do you think McGregor could actually beat him? And also, who do you want to see next for Khabib?
That's a hard one. I'm not looking for a rematch right now. I think that Conor should fight a fight in between, and he should really need to brush up on his submission game. He simply has to. 4 losses, 4 submissions. Come on, man. This is the thing. After my 3rd submission loss, that was it for me. I said no more, and I started only doing ground. And it worked. I won my next 8 fights by submission suddenly. Actually have more submission victories than I have knockouts. It's just putting the work in. I don't know where his heart is. I think that Conor would be really good in boxing if he really only focuses. Imagine he starts training 2 times a day like he did for Mayweather, but now for a year, the whole year long, only 2 times a day. Get really good professional boxers coming in, and then start boxing. Maybe that's a good thing for him to do as well. But to see a rematch, nah, I don't know. Not now.
I think this Tony Ferguson versus Khabib fight, in an ideal world, that'll be the one that comes next, because a lot of people want to see it. Just got to ask, sort of a little side note on UFC 229. Derrick Lewis had a pretty amazing performance, an amazing comeback win against Alexander Volkov, and then here he is being slotted against Daniel Cormier just a couple of weeks later for UFC 230. What do you think about that fight being made, and sort of Derrick Lewis stepping up on short notice after going through a pretty massive war against Volkov and now fighting for the heavyweight belt?
Yeah, Volkov, that's a big reach, and he has really good striking. That's not going to be Daniel Cormier. Cormier is actually going to be the smaller guy, I guess, in this fight. But Cormier is Cormier, man. He's going to be on you like a freaking wetsuit, and you cannot get him off. He's constantly attacking. Yeah, I don't see him win the fight, but dude, it's Derrick Lewis. It needs just one punch needs to connect, and if it connects, it's going to be over. And I saw him one time. I don't know, it was a bunch of fights ago, and he started out very light on his feet, like almost like a freaking welterweight. I mean, that light on his feet. I go, wow, can you imagine he has stamina for that kind of fighting for a couple of rounds? That could be very difficult for Cormier. But Cormier, I shouldn't say that, because Cormier, he will never fight. They will never fight here. Fight starts, boom, he's there. That's it. And once you clinch with a guy, with that level of wrestling and that level of stamina, and we know that, of course, Lewis is a big guy, and he does run out of gas, and he's never been pushed like he's going to get pushed against Cain Velasquez. I mean, Cain Velasquez is going to come for you, and he will, Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier is going to come for you, and he's going to constantly be in your face. To do 2 rounds of that, it's going to crush almost everybody. That's the same with Tony Ferguson we were just talking about. I would love to see the fight against him and Khabib, but because Ferguson, what an animal. I mean, if you hear them say they sometimes train 6 hours a day, he brings it to a whole new level, But you see, that's what you need to do. That's Vinny Magalhaes, when we were talking about it, is doing the same. That's Josh Copeland. And those guys, they take it to the next level, because that's how you win fights. So, yeah, both those fights, I'm looking forward to it. But, yeah, the smart bet would, of course, be on Daniel Cormier.
And I want to quickly get your thoughts on Fedor's win. But before I do that, what do you make of Daniel Cormier being stripped of the light heavyweight title and John Jones fighting for it against Alexander Gustafsson? Do you think it was a fair decision by the UFC, or what did you think of that?
Oof, yeah, you know what? That comes as a surprise to me, because I've been traveling. I've been like in 6 states in the last 3 weeks. It's crazy for me. I don't know what I think about it. I think Daniel fights good at any weight, and a John Jones fight, I think it will be in his head. And I have a feeling that if Jones becomes the champion again, which he probably does, because he's a freak of nature. He's just a really good fighter. That's why I was always hoping for him to stay on the straight path, because if he does that, he can influence so many kids and other people, yeah, I made mistakes in my life. Now I'm going to show you what it is to be a good person. And he can do so much good with that. So I hope he stays on track, and that will happen. And if he becomes the champion, I believe that Cormier, knowing Cormier, he probably wants to fight him again. Cormier is super competitive. We all know that. And, it's still good, because he's still the heavyweight champion. So it doesn't really matter about it. I don't know what he said personally about it as well. But it's just very hard if you have 2 titles to defend both all the time. Some fighters are simply not going to get their fight if that happens. And I think that's the reason of the UFC, that they say, okay, you're fighting for the heavyweight title again. Let's take the light heavy title away. I assume that's the reason.
Obviously, got to get your thoughts on Fedor Emelianenko beating Chael Sonnen over the weekend. You mentioned you watched that fight. What did you think of that performance?
I was so amazed with Fedor. And I was amazed that actually Chael pulled off a double leg on him also. And he got it. But that first takedown, the first real takedown, when he had taken down, and then, I don't know, it almost looked like Fedor made kind of a cartwheel kind of thing. And then he ended up on top. I've never seen that move. I go, dude, that was so slick what he did. And once he went to mount, I was already going to say, because I've seen that in Japan with Fedor, if you mount him, because, he's his torso is very high, so you don't sit completely on him. It's harder to base your legs out because he's got a really high torso. It's harder to find your base, so to say, and he's really good with escaping there. And once he ended up in the guard, I go, oh, now we're going to see Fedor Nogueira, right? And all the way in the beginning, the Fedor with this ground and pound, so sick from the guard, doing it from being in somebody's guard. But then, of course, he passed, and we saw what happened there. I think he looked really good. I think that Chael didn't look bad at all. Used his striking to set up the takedowns. It was very smart to just keep on going for the takedowns. Of course, it was the only option he had. But the second option is that the reason is that Chael he's always comes in shape. He wants to train hard, and he surprised a lot of people with that. And I think that was his game plan. Even if it doesn't work, keep attacking. Hopefully he can get him tired and get some of that power away in the second or the third round. And obviously he never went to a second round. He looked really good to me. Fedor looked like the man. But then again, if you put him against a great striker who's a great wrestler as well, you see, then he's getting really tested again. On the feet, he didn't really get tested, but he got tested in the wrestling department, that's for sure.
I mean, just quickly, it's going to be him versus Ryan Bader. It would be hard to pick against Ryan Bader just because Ryan is sort of in the prime of his career and is looking better than ever. But, who do you think would win that fight?
Yeah, it's a hard one. For Fedor, you have to understand also it's kind of redemption for him, right? Losing to Mitrione, and then Bader beat Mitrione, and now he's fighting Bader. So in his mind, he goes, if I beat him, I beat the guy who beat Mitrione. So I think that if he already trained hard, which he does, I think he's going to step it up. He's going to go extremely crazy. He knows that he's at the end of his career. He wants to come off stop his career with a win, of course, with a series of wins, preferably. So it's going to be a badass Fedor. But then again, Ryan Bader, man, he looked phenomenal against Mitrione. He completely shut him down. Now, I don't know if he can keep that. Mitrione doesn't have any real ground experience as for a wrestler. It's like with me. They take me down and they be on top of me. A wrestler is very hard for me to get up. I need to go for submissions. But if they're in the guard, there's not a lot. In the side mount, there's not a lot. In the half guard, there's not a lot. You can go for a leg, but if they don't put their foot up, don't step on the foot, there's no leg lock. You see, there's so much the finesse right now in these days. Everybody is so good in what they do. Oh, it's a hard fight. I really don't. I really don't know who will win that. I would say if it goes to like the third round, then Bader. I see him because he's younger and he looks really good lately, and maybe because he's in better shape then, because since he's younger, he might take it to Fedor. But otherwise, you have to understand also this. I'm coming from Pride Fighting Championships, like the Fedor he always was, and it's very hard to unsee that in your mind. Because the guy is such a powerhouse. The things they did, I mean, Randleman, when he dropped him on his head and then he just armbars him, he gives him Kimura right after. I mean, it's insane. The guy just stays so calm, and he looked like he was in great shape in this fight as well. So I don't know. That was my own prediction. I would think Fedor early on. If it goes to a stoppage, and at past 3 rounds, I think that Brian might get it.
And I think that's a great point by you. I think Ryan Bader is a big Fedor fan, so I wonder if when he gets in the ring with him, it might be a little bit too much fighting a legend and a guy like Fedor, and if that affects the fight. Bas, we really appreciate your time. As we wrap up, I just want to quickly mention, obviously, the World Bare-Knuckle Fighting Federation is going to have a massive event with Chris Leben, Johnny Hendricks, and I noticed you sort of shared it on your social media. So before we wrap up, I just really sort of wanted to mention it, let people know about it, and just quickly get a couple of comments from you about, are you involved in this one, and sort of, are you excited for this event? It looks like it's got a lot of really cool names on it.
I'm super excited for this. I think that that this is going to be a really good show, and yes, I am very much involved. I'm the president of the company.
Oh wow! Speaking of president, we didn't realize this. Hall of Famer, former champion, and a president now.
Mr. President.
It's amazing. Add that on checklist the things that are happening, dude. It's going to be crazy. I mean, Johnny Hendricks, Brennan Ward. I mean, that's going to be a crazy fight. Brennan Ward's an incredible striker, really good. We got Chris Leben and then Baroni. Leben, trust me, and everybody's saying, oh, he had this. We tested everything. We made sure 100% that this guy is all okay in his head. He had a whole bunch of tests done, and it's all okay. Because trust me, otherwise he wouldn't be fighting. We wouldn't have allowed him to fight. So that's a really cool one. I'm looking forward to Sean Merriman, the linebacker, the football player, who had this guy who was 265 pounds. And it's like, what was it, then? 4 feet vertical leap, something like that.
Wow.
That's a crazy athlete. And yeah, of course, he fights Mike Burke, and then Mike Burke doesn't have the greatest record, but he has been fighting. If Burke had like 25, 26 fights, I believe, winning and losing all together combined, it's still 26 fights more than Merriman had. So, sometimes people go like, oh, he's going to just walk him over because he's not a good fighter. But people at home don't understand that even the fighters here, if you're a top 100 fighter, you at home will have no chance against that top 100 fighter because they're professional fighters. It's what they do every day, single day, 2 times a day, preferably. So it's going to be very hard for Merriman, but he's a freak, also a freak athlete. So I'm really looking forward to that fight. We have a ladies fight, whole bunch of good fights. We have an 8-man tournament going on, not in one night. We're spreading it out over a few shows. So it's going to be more fair, so to say, that if you have an injury, you don't have to carry it on to your next fight. You're going to have time to rest. And I'm looking forward to that tournament as well. So, yeah, I truly believe it's going to be a really great show. The production is going to be insane. We have a really good producer. It's not going to be unlike you've seen before. I can say it's like the UFC level what we're going to do. I mean,
Wow.
what is it? Mayweather and Pac-Man. We have the same producer.
Wow.
So, yeah, we put the gears up because we knew that, if we want to come up and we want to make it right, we're going to have we need the good people for it. And that's where we spent the money on a really great production.
That's crazy. And just quickly, as we let you go, Bas, what made you want to sign on as president?
Well, what happened was somebody asked me also to be the president of a new MMA organization. There's so many out there. Didn't really feel like it. It's very hard. UFC is so big. Even Bellator has trouble with bouncing up against them, and they have Viacom behind them. They make so much money, it's insane. Then Karate Combat came. Hey, Karate Combat, I love that, bringing karate back in a full contact version. Yes, sign me up. I'm the ambassador for the organization. And now suddenly they ask me, hey, do you want to be a commentator? We do anything to have you as a commentator. I say, you will do anything. Yeah. Well, I'd like to actually be involved in that then. I said, because I think that people would find this very interesting. And for the people at home, I just have to say that also, because First, I'd let them wait. I went online and I start Googling about it. And I always say, don't believe me, just Google about it. Is bare-knuckle boxing safer than boxing? And you'll find out all the testing that you find, yeah, it is safer than boxing. And people are going to freak out. But we all know this because we went through this with the MMA. The glove is invented to protect the hand, right? We all know this, but a lot of people at home don't know this. They think it's to protect the head of the opponent. No, it's not. So what happens is, in the early days when boxing started, it was bare knuckle. But then a champion, for instance, would win his fight, but he would break his hand. Now he couldn't defend the title for 3-4 months, maybe even 6 months, because he was out for a long time. So that's why they came up with the idea to have a boxing glove, because now they can actually hit way harder to the head, as hard as they want, because nothing is going to happen to the hand. So if you take that away, believe it or not, the good bare knuckle boxers, they hit literally 40% to the head with power, because they're all afraid to break their hands. They hit the shoulders, they hit the forearms, they hit the meaty parts and of course, they go for the stuff that I really like, the body. Your lacerations, of course, you're going to see all that, but you're going to see CTE effects, like you have in boxing or in kickboxing, maybe even. No, you're not going to see that. Hopefully, you're not going to see the cannon punch be really hard one time on the jaw. Of course, it can happen. Can there be more cuts? Of course, there's going to be more cuts. There's a competition from us. And he had, from his last time, and it was like 14 fights or 15 fights, was 1 broken hand and 1 knockout in all the fights. And the rest, you got to cut here, you got to cut there. We have doctors in the backstage. We actually have plastic surgeons for the guys. Wow. Because we want to spend the extra money for it, so that if they do get cut, that they have a plastic surgeon taking care of them backstage and making sure that wound is not going to be showing up too bad. Then again, for what I understand, that's a saying, right? Chicks dig scars, right? That's what they said when you were a kid. So, for a guy, it's not that bad. For the women fights, yeah, I would love them to stay pretty, of course. So That's the reason. Then I called him back, and then because I knew already, somebody told me about it. But when I found out that it will cause less CTE for the brain than you do have in boxing or in Thai boxing, I say, yeah, okay, then I would like to do it. Now it's just about informing the people, and hopefully they can understand it. Now, if you don't like blood, don't buy the pay-per-view, because, yeah, you're going to see that cuts will happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is going down live on pay-per-view November 9th at 10 p.m. EST, 7 p.m. PST. And, of course, that is in a different day. That is a day. Wait, are we later or earlier, Casper? I'm completely.
We're in the future. We're in the future. So if it's November 9th, it's going to be the 10th here, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a nice afternoon, morning here in Australia, which everybody will enjoy. So check that out. That's Brennan Ward versus Big Rig, Johnny Hendricks. You got Chris Leben versus Phil Baroni. So many great fights. And I actually agree with you, Bas. I think it actually brings a different level of excitement and interest to the fights. It definitely is something fun and exciting for people to check out. And the production value is going to be great, so you can't miss out. And, of course, follow the great man, the president himself, on Instagram and Twitter at Bas Rutten MMA, the Bas Rutten O2 trainer, of course, fantastic. Pick it up to get ready for summer in Australia, and receptornaturals.com/Bas-Rutten for your CBD oil. Bas, thank you so much for coming onto the program. We can't wait to see how this event goes down, and of course, no doubt about it, we'll have you back on to discuss it once it's done. Thank you so much for your time.
Perfect. And the next Saturday, PFL, Professional Fighters League in D.C. Yes. Check it out. Also, NBCSN.
Thank you so much, Bas. Always appreciate it, man. Have a great one.
All right, bro. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.